Good morning. How are we this morning? Yeah. If we told you last week that Christmas was going to explode inside of the auditorium, didn't we? Yeah. Family Sunday. All of our kiddos in here this morning. Good day. All right, quick question for you. First off, new series starting today for Christmas, The Big Give, getting wrapped up in Christmas. So, question, how many of you enjoy putting up Christmas decorations? Put your hands up real high. Christmas decorations, you just love it. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's wonderful. It's incredible. Okay, put your hands down. How many of you are like me and you have just a little bit of humbug in you? Yes, that's my people right there. It's good to see you this morning. Hey, we love you all. I do love it. I want to say thank you to all the ones that came out and decorated and did everything. It does look really cool, doesn't it? Doesn't it look good? Yeah, I like it. Out there in the lobby, just so you know, that big present, the big gift out there, you're welcome to get out there and get a picture with you, your family. Just grab a random person, whatever. Just get a picture made out there underneath of that. We put that out there for you guys. And it is Christmas time. A lot of you know, a lot of you have been with us this week. It's been a difficult week this week for us as we lost one of our family members here. And we love that family. Kim was praying for them, and difficult season, difficult time. But we're here this morning, and we're going to honor God this morning, and we're going to talk about the best gift, the big give, and getting wrapped up in Christmas. I remember Christmas as a kid. There was no humbug in me when I was a kid. I loved Christmas. I've got two older brothers. We were notorious for unwrapping the Christmas presents before Christmas, getting our toys out and playing with them, and then putting them back in the box and wrapping them back up. Anybody else? Everybody else ever do that? Anybody else jump in? I was the only one. Fantastic. All right, I'm going straight to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. No, we used to do that all the time. So much so that by the time I was probably about, 9, 10 years old, best of my recollection, somewhere along in there. Again, my brothers are older. My mom started wrapping our Christmas presents in newspaper. And you're like, oh, that looks horrible under a tree. I'm going to take it a step further. Not only would she wrap them in newspaper, she would put code numbers on every one of the gifts that she would keep in a notebook, where on Christmas morning she would come out and number 9743657.76 was the present for Tony. Wasn't that fantastic? That's how you really get wrapped up in Christmas spirit, isn't it? No, it's not. Getting wrapped up in Christmas is a crazy thing for those of us who are Christians. Because, can we be straight for just a second? Y'all know, okay, this may mess up some of you. Y'all know Jesus wasn't born on December 25th, right? Did y'all know that? Some of you you're leaving right now, aren't you? You're not even going to stay here. He didn't. More than likely, it was probably sometime in the spring. And this whole Mary riding on a donkey. And women in here, how many women in here have been 9 months pregnant? Riding on a donkey sounds like your very favorite thing in the world to do, right? Yeah, they did go to Bethlehem. It did happen. I'm not confident that Mary was on the back of a donkey. I'm not confident she walked a whole lot either, but she wasn't taking an Uber, so they had to get there somewhere, somehow. But this Christmas season that we celebrate every year is a great time to have a holiday and to remember and to focus on the birth of Jesus. And really, the idea is to get wrapped up into Christmas. If there is ever a season in the year that we can present Jesus and tell the world that Jesus is our Savior, that, listen, the world, the malls, everything, everybody's playing the songs, everybody's doing it. We get to proclaim Jesus and get wrapped up in it. We don't have to do a lot of shopping anymore because everybody has an Amazon list, right? Do y'all have an Amazon list? There's no surprises on Christmas anymore, is there? There's not in my family because my kids have sent me their Amazon list. So you get on there and you go check and they're like, oh, got that gift. There's no surprises. It's just Christmas and we're ready for it. Are you ready for Christmas? Yeah. Okay, I need to see if y'all are awake. Are you awake? Yeah. Cool. If you're not awake, if someone next to you is not awake, you have permission to elbow them in the nose. All right, so you can do that. No, don't do that. That would be horrible, all right? So we're going to get wrapped up this morning just a little bit. And as we get going this morning, again, difficult week, difficult circumstances this week. And there's the idea of the things that happen at just different times of the year. Life is not always Christmas trees and lights and happy and fun. There's difficulties in life, isn't there? There's things that we have to face and things that we need and things that we walk through and difficulties that happen in our lives. Sometimes we don't know what to do. We don't know how to react. We don't know what to say. Sometimes things seem extremely unfair and we're not exactly sure. Sometimes we don't even know what we need at Christmas time. But sometimes the thing we need the most is right there in front of us. So if you're watching online this morning or you're sitting here this morning, I want to ask you a question. And it's where I'm going to base this first message in this series out of. It's going to be wrapped around this one question. They're going to put it up on the screen. If you want to follow along with sermon notes, that little magnet on the back of the chairs, you can scan that with a QR code and download the sermon notes, or you can look up here and follow along. Here's the Christmas. Woo, I read it. Here's the question. What do you need this Christmas? Now, a lot of you have created the Amazon list, and you said, this is what I need, and this is what I need, and this is what I need. And if you were honest, you don't need any of that junk. But what do you really need this Christmas? What do you really need? I'm going to speak to you this morning using some verses out of one of the oldest books we have in the Bible. The Bible is divided into two sections, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Old Testament was kind of written for the Hebrew nation, the Jewish people, and talking about Jesus, and that was going to be the climax of the story and everything with Jesus in the New Testament. But one of the most revered and best-known prophets in the Old Testament was a prophet by the name of Isaiah. And he was writing about this. You see, we have difficulties in life. Nobody's had a perfect life. Nobody's been through life unscathed, unscarred, and had everything go perfect for you. We have difficulties. Well, let me tell you about the nation of Israel, this Hebrew nation at the time that Isaiah came along. The nation was a little bit in turmoil. There was a lot of crazy things that were happening. They were about to be overthrown by the Assyrian nation, eventually the Babylonian nation. There was a lot of things that were happening. The nation was living in guilt and shame. They had gone away from God. They had stepped back from the promises that they should have known and they should have been living by. They were stepping away from everything. So their world was completely shook. They were grieving losses. They were living in the guilt. They were betraying God, and yet at the same time they were getting this call to come back to God. It's in the middle of that a prophet by the name of Isaiah steps in. And Isaiah, most of the book is prophecy about coming doom and coming judgment and difficult things. But all throughout the book of Isaiah, there are these glimpses where it says, don't give up on God. No matter how things hurt, no matter how bad things are, no matter how many difficulties you have, don't you give up on God, because God has a plan. Aren't you glad God has a plan for everything? See, I think too often, well, I'll just speak for me. For me, quite often, I get stuck in the moment and the heartache and the hurt and the difficulties. And sometimes I forget that God has this plan, how things are going to tie together and how things are going to work. Even bad decisions, even difficulties, and also griefs and sorrows and things that we all walk through, God has a plan. In the middle of this book of Isaiah that is written, Isaiah, in this prophecy, he's hearing all these things and he knows there's a coming doom and things that are going to happen. In the middle of that, God speaks to Isaiah with some of the most famous Christmas words that you will probably recognize. Here's one. In Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, these words were uttered by the prophet Isaiah. He said this, he said, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will call him Emmanuel. Now, you got to understand the context of this. How many of y'all have heard that verse before or seen that verse before? Put your hand up real high. I'm taking a poll. How many of you have seen that verse before? It is the traditional Christmas verse that gets quoted out of the book of Isaiah, and the angels come in the background, oh, and everybody's happy and Christmas is coming. But in the days that this was spoken, you got to understand, they were at a place of certain doom, certain destruction, certain grief, certain difficulty, certain shame and guilt and everything that was there. And yet in the middle of that, Isaiah said, hey guys, God has a plan. God's going to make everything right one day. God's going to take every bad choice you made, and if you give that to God, and if you come to Him, He's going to do something with it, and His plan starts right here. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will call him Emmanuel. Now, the reason this word Emmanuel means so much to us, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't know this, or maybe you're going to learn it, the word Emmanuel means God with us. Now, of all the things that I need this Christmas, I need a God who's going to be with me. I need a God who says, I want to be a part of your life. I want to be a part of your heartache. I want to be a part of your joy. I want to be a part of everything that you do. I am there with you. And that means a lot to us, but it meant even more for them, because the temple was about to be destroyed. The nation was about to fall apart. The doom was sitting there. And for them to understand and get an understanding that this was not going to be the end, that God had a plan, and the most difficult area of their life, the most difficult need, God was going to wrap it up in a gift, and He was going to say, I'm giving you me. I'm giving you me. One of the greatest things about being a Christian, one of the greatest things about, and I know that term, good Lord, when we say Christian, everybody's a Christian in the South. If you're not a Christian, your grandmother was, so you think you got doctored in on it. There's no grandfathering Christianity, just in case you're wondering. But the idea of being a Christian means that you've committed your life to God and you're following Him with your life. It's not a one-time prayer that you prayed when you were a kid. It is a lifetime of following Jesus. For those of us that are Christians, one of the greatest things and one of the greatest needs is filled right here in this verse. The very fact that God is with us. You know what I need this Christmas? I need a God to be with me. Maybe that's you this morning. This prophet Isaiah, there's several different chapters and several different places in Isaiah that he talks about this coming king that's going to be coming. They didn't know when. The Jewish nation was just wanting deliverance and wanting something to change. Isaiah's prophesying years into the future. But he says these words just a chapter later after this, or 2 chapters later, in Isaiah chapter 9. Let me read this to you. Isaiah 9, verse 6, and you've heard these verses as well. He says these words. He says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. Now before I go on, and before I give you these names of Jesus that are here, that'll hopefully help you see some things that you may need at Christmas time, I got to take just a second where it says, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. It's kind of a twofold meaning. Y'all know the Bible wasn't written in English, right? Did y'all know that? Did you know that Jesus ain't American? Did y'all know that? He don't wear a red, white, and blue t-shirt and vote Republican or Democrat every year. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that? Okay, just in case you was wondering, he don't carry an M16 or wear red, white, and blue. All right? This idea that the government will be on his shoulders is kind of twofold. One of the things is that when the Messiah, when Jesus comes, the entire world, the government, everything will sit right on his shoulders. Everything will be there. He will carry the weight of the entire world when he comes. And there's truth in that. There's also a twofold meaning that I really love. And you're only going to find this if you dig into some of the original language, the Hebrew that it was written into. And it's this. The government will be on his shoulders. This idea of it being on his shoulders is this. I did this in first service. I got to do it again. If you're a Bible person, you probably know that in the book of Revelation, it talks about when Jesus is going to return. That when he returns, he comes riding on a horse, and he has this wicked cool tattoo on his thigh. And it says, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You ever read that verse before? You ever read? Isn't that cool? Isn't that a good picture of Jesus? He's going to be coming back riding a horse, just whipping tail. It's going to be great, isn't it, right? That's Southern Jesus. But anyway, but here, this is the picture of this. The government will be on his shoulders. The idea of the government being on his shoulders is that at any point in time in history, whenever someone was crowned king or became the ruler, the general of the army, when you're king, the commander-in-chief, say, that way, the idea was something was placed right here that says, I'm in charge. It's me. Like a patch on a shoulder. Like if you're a military person or you come from a military background. Like my dad was in the military for 20 years, and I remember going to the army base and stuff with him. And you'd walk along, and of course he had to salute everybody that was over him. But I remember there were certain people that he would salute, and he would take a little bit longer, whether that was a colonel or a major or whoever it might be. And my dad even met some generals along the way. Think about it this way. When it says the government will be on his shoulders, it means that he will have a representation both here when he returns returns. And what he's saying, Isaiah, is that he is representing right here that he's got the entire world and it's his to take care of. I need that this Christmas. How about you? Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if we really did have a place that we could cast all of our burdens, all of our pain, all of our hurt, all of our grief, all of our shame, and all of our guilt? Wouldn't that be cool? Well, here's the reality. We do. And I need that this Christmas. Isaiah goes on in his prophecy and he says this child that is going to be born, the sign that is given, and the sign that he speaks of is that virgin birth earlier. And he says this will be what he's called. This isn't his name, but this is what he's called. He will be called a wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. We're probably going to get out a little bit early. Got kids in the auditorium, and they're doing fantastic, by the way, this morning. And parents, you're doing fantastic too. I don't know if you gave them Benadryl, but they're doing really great this morning. But everybody's doing well. But I'm gonna walk through this. What do you need this Christmas? I'm going to ask you some questions. All right. The first one is this: these names of Jesus. Do you need a wonderful counselor? Do you need a wonderful counselor? I can tell you, I've been in ministry for around 31 years, and I've been counseling for most of those times, and I'm a fairly decent counselor. I'm not bragging on myself. I just do a pretty good job. I also sometimes really, really am not good at it. Sometimes when people come to see me or couples come to see me, and I'm sitting there, and I might be sitting at my desk, and I'm going, come on, tell me your problem, tell me your problem, tell me your problem, tell me your... And then when they finally do, I'm like, yes, take these 2 pills, and we'll make this... No, I don't do that. But I do go, take these 2 scriptures and obey what God says, and if you'll do what God says, you wouldn't be in the mess you're in, so get out of my office and do what God says. Anybody want to make an appointment? I'm booked, by the way. No, I'm teasing. Listen, if you're not in counseling, you should be. Everybody should be. And counseling doesn't mean that you go sit on a couch and put your feet up and tell somebody all your problems. Counseling can be doing life with a group of people. Counseling can be sitting with people that are older than you, or people that are experienced in life, or people that have experiences that you don't have, older and younger. It's sitting with a group of people and speaking and being real and authentic about life. But picture this. In this original language, when it says a wonderful counselor, a wonderful counselor is a counselor who doesn't need any counsel. What would it be like if you sat down and said, this is what I'm struggling with, this is the issues that I'm dealing with, and the counselor that you're counseling with already knows all of the issues and already knows the results of everything? That'd be a pretty good counselor to go to, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be cool? If he was able to connect all the dots, put everything together, and not just connect the dots from your past and what you're walking through, but to be able to point forward and go, and this is how it's going to work out. Let me show you how it's going to work out. That's the counselor I want. Anybody got that counselor? I want to go see that counselor. That's what I need this Christmas. I need a wonderful counselor. And by the way, in case you're wondering who that wonderful counselor is, there's only one place for us to cast our cares and our burdens and our difficulties, and that's on Jesus. That's who he is. When Isaiah said that a virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, his name will be Emmanuel, and he will be known as a wonderful counselor. That embodies everything that Jesus is. Do you need that this Christmas? I do. Not only the question of, do you need a wonderful counselor? There's another question within this. Do you need a mighty God? Do you need a mighty God? I do. I need a God that I know that can win every battle, that is completely undefeated in everything that he's faced. Oh, people thought that they defeated him, but they didn't. I need a God who is strong enough to handle everything and every situation that I walk through, and the things that I'm going to face and the things that are going to come. I need a God who is mighty and strong enough to handle every single thing that I'm going to go through. Because so many times I get in situations and you get in situations where you're sitting there going, if I just had somebody I could lean on, what if you just leaned on God? One of my favorite things that happened this week, through the death of a friend, as I was sitting with his wife several times throughout this week and having conversations and watching her and grieving with her and crying with her and watching our church family come together and love her the way that we're supposed to, and we did. I had somebody walk up to me out on their porch, and they asked me a question, and they said this. They said, how do we go on? What do we do? I don't know what to do. And I said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what Wendy's doing. Because Miss Wendy, every single time that I would walk up to her and put my arm around her, she would take a very deep breath and she would say, Jesus, Jesus. Whether we rode to a funeral home or rode back to the house, or yesterday during a wonderful service to be able to honor Brian's life, every single time she would just take a deep breath and say, Jesus. You know where that comes from? That comes from a belief and an understanding that we serve a mighty God. I don't serve a half-hearted God. I don't serve a God who walks into any battle and says, I'm getting in this battle just so I can battle. He walks into every single situation, everything that we face in our lives. He is in control. He has control. And whatever you're walking through in your life, you have a mighty God that's sitting there. All you've got to do is turn your life to Him and give your life to Him. Because I want to tell you this in the middle of everything that we face, everything that we walk through, do you know that this life is really, really short? None of us are guaranteed anything more than the breath that you're holding right now. And one day, this life on this earth is going to end, and you're going to stand before this mighty God. And He's going to want to know, what did you do with Jesus? He's going to want to know, are you going to be in eternity with me? And it's all based on the decision you make right here on this earth. Do you need a mighty God? I do. I need a God that I know can handle anything in my life. Do you need a mighty God? Do you need a wonderful counselor? Maybe. Maybe you need this one. Do you need an everlasting Father? Oh, I love this. Listen, if I knew how to read Hebrew and speak in Hebrew, first of all, it would be a whole lot of and then outside of that, I would love to be able to do this, but I can't read Hebrew. I just hit a button on my computer. It tells me what the word means. But this idea of an everlasting Father, do you need an everlasting Father? It is so beautiful in the original language. It is the understanding that at the very beginning of time, for us that are Christians, we go back to the book of Genesis and we see this creation story that God created the heavens and the earth, and He separated the light from the darkness, and He told the oceans to stop, and He created fish and He created birds, and then ultimately He created people, and everything was created to worship Him. The idea of, do you need an everlasting Father? The idea of Jesus being called an everlasting Father is God with us. It means that at creation, Jesus was there. It means that every single step of the way that God's Son Jesus has been there, and He is exactly what you need. There is nothing you will face, there is no difficulty, there is nothing you will walk through that He is not there. I also love the idea that it says everlasting Father, which means it comes without end. It means that this everlasting Father is not just what you need right now. He will be what you need to carry you into eternity and for all of history. Do you need that? A couple of things. If you don't know Jesus this morning, you better start right there. I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're walking through. I don't know what things that you're facing right now. But I know this with 100% certainty. There is eternity. And if you don't have Jesus, this everlasting will end for you one day. Oh, eternity won't end. You'll just be separated from Him in a place called hell. That's not fun to talk about at Christmas time, but it's truth. So, do you need a wonderful counselor? Do you need a mighty God? Do you need an everlasting Father? And then the last thing that He's called there in Isaiah is probably the thing we need the most. Do you need a Prince of Peace? There's a lot of things in Prince of Peace. First off, it's a prince. That means it's just an image of the son of a king. Jesus is the son of His Father, a son of the King. That means that He carries all the right, all the prestige, all the authority, all of everything that comes with it. It comes in the name of Jesus. And then my very favorite thing on this, and I actually wrote it down, and I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to read it to you. The English word peace doesn't do a great job describing what the Hebrew word peace is. See, the Hebrew word peace does this. The word involves putting back together what has been broken. You ever heard peace described that way? Peace is putting back together what's been broken. I'll bet you I bet you there's nobody on the front row here, so I can pick on the front row. If I started over here and I made my way back and I just went row by row and I got Kyle to come out and just take a microphone and just walk by and hand it to each and every person. We're not going to, by the way, because we don't have enough time and we're all getting hungry. But if I had him walk around and hand a microphone to every single person in the room, I guarantee you there's something broken in every single one of our lives. What do you need this Christmas? I need some broken things to be put back together. How about you? See, some of the biggest difficulties that we face in our lives can be the greatest gift that God has ever given us if we just turn to Him. These verses go on, and then I'm done. In verse 7, it says, of the greatness of His government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over His kingdom, establishing, upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. And then I love these words. And again, original language is so much prettier. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. This zeal of the Lord Almighty, the way that it is pictured, is a burning hot love for mankind. A red hot, so much love for us. This zeal of God that is saying, I know what you need. I know you need a wonderful counselor, a mighty God, an everlasting Father, and a Prince of Peace. I know you need Emmanuel. I know you need me to send my Son. I know that if left to yourself, you will not be able to withstand this earth and withstand eternity. I know that about you, and I love you so much. My zeal is so strong. This word zeal is actually combined with love and with jealousy in the original language. So it gives a picture of this. It is God saying, I love you so much that I'm willing to sacrifice my Son for you. And I am so jealous for you to worship me and love me that I will move heaven and earth to give you an opportunity. I will make everything in this life work in such a way where you have the chance to accept me, where you have the chance to recognize that I am with you. I am Emmanuel. And everything, every difficulty, every pain, every hurt that you have in your life, I am working those together. And I'm here. That's what I need this Christmas. Let me see if I can put a bow on it. No pun intended. They're going to put a statement up on the screen for you that I always like wrapping things up this way. Your deepest need, it always becomes a gift when it drives you to depend on God. What do you need this Christmas? Do you need peace? Do you need a mighty God? Do you need that wonderful counselor? Do you need the everlasting Father? Do you need to just know that God's with you? Whatever that big need is, it's a gift. Every hurt, everything we've had is a gift from God if it drives us to God. But you have a choice. You can let everything that you struggle with, every difficulty, every pain, you can let every bit of that drive you and pull you away from God, or you can recognize that God loves you and that He wants you to draw to Him through everything you walk through. So what do you need this Christmas? If you don't know Jesus, I'll tell you what you need above everything else. You need Him. If you are what we call a Christian, someone who's given their life to Jesus, do you know what you need this Christmas? You need Jesus, the same thing. You need to draw toward Him. You need to let Him hold you. So what do you do with a message like this? I wish I could give you 5 things to do and a poem to listen to on the way home, but I can't. What I can tell you is this: whatever you're needing, whatever you're walking through, whatever difficulty you're facing, the answer is Jesus. He's there. He's with you. And He'll be with us this Christmas. And that's a great place to get wrapped up in Christmas. Let me pray. God, I love you. Thank you for the prophecies of years ago, the fulfillment in Jesus Himself, and the things that are yet to be fulfilled. Thank you that there will come a day that we will be with you, God. I pray that today you draw people to you. If there's someone here today that doesn't know you, God, I pray that you take, even sometimes when I ramble and I'm goofy, God, I pray that you use that and you draw people to you. God, I pray that you hear our hurting hearts, that you heal, and that you bring peace where only peace can be brought. God, that you show up as a wonderful counselor, as a mighty God, as an everlasting Father, and as a Prince of Peace. We need you. Thank you for being with us. And God, if there's anybody here today that doesn't know you, please don't let them leave today without asking and talking to someone and giving their life to you. God, we love you. In your name we pray. Amen.